Alright, hello everybody, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the newly formed tropical storm Isaias. That is the one time I will say its name during this video because I do not want to embarrass myself anymore. Anyways, we will start off by looking at the storm as if the time this was recorded, then we'll get into tracks, strength, look at a few hurricane models and where they're going to take the storm, maybe what will cause the storm to go in a certain direction along the east coast of the United States. Then we'll finish it up with the official National Hurricane Center forecast as of the time this video was being recorded. So as you can see, the center of the storm has been identified this evening, which has resulted in the naming of this storm, because before they were having trouble finding the exact center, but now that this convection has really blown up around the center late this evening, that's resulted in the storm actually being named. So now let's look at the tracks for the storm. As you can see, that it's currently to the south of Puerto Rico. By Thursday evening, it's expected to be over northern and perhaps northwestern parts of Hispaniola, and then from there, the overwhelming majority of models have it going through the Bahamas. Now, this is where things have gotten very different in the past 24 hours. Only one night ago was I saying that we thought that this storm was going to go to the southern tip of Florida and may even track up the west coast of Florida. But nothing is locked in, and this is just an example. These tracks are not locked in. We could easily see the storm staying off the coast. We could easily see it scraping the east coast of Florida and then hitting the Outer Banks down to Wilmington. It's still up in the air. That's why if you want to see more updates like these, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll have so much more in the coming days, not only about this, but about, of course, other weather that you might be interested in. So as you can see, we really do have two tracks of, really two different tracks. And one takes it right along the east coast of Florida, just off Miami, and then continues to take the storm through the Gulf Stream, which may result in some strengthening. And also, there's going to be less dry air out ahead of the system, which I'll cover in a second. And then another track keeps the storm right over the Bahamas, right over the central Bahamas, and then results in it going a little bit further away from the coast, off about 150 miles off the Outer Banks. Does not impact New England, and that's another thing. These more inland tracks, or not so much well, it's closer to land. Some of them have a landfall. They also keep Cape Cod in play later downstream, basically heading into early to even probably early to mid next week, probably about Tuesday. So anyways, those are the two tracks. So we have two possibilities really right now. One just scrapes Florida and then goes into eastern North Carolina. Another goes through the central Bahamas and then stays well offshore of the Outer Banks. As you can see, strength models have kind of bumped up over the past 24 hours. Most of the models yesterday night when we were looking at this had this storm staying as a tropical storm. However, more models are actually predicting that it may reach hurricane strength, category 1 at least. But there is definitely a trend of maybe some more strengthening with this system after it reaches the Gulf Stream, assuming that it does take that track at least. So by the time of landfall, which is roughly, well, actually, because I was going to say that it was going to make landfall in Florida, which would be about 3 days from when this was being recorded. It was supposed to be Sunday at 2 a.m., but now that's not even a certainty. It could easily miss Florida and then either go into the North Carolina Outer Banks or, as I mentioned, stay offshore. So anyways, let's look at the GFS. So the GFS has really gotten kind of a grip of the storm last night all the way up until this point. It didn't even really have any tropical storm or hurricane impacting the East Coast. Now it does. So let's look at where it takes this storm. As you can see, it currently has a storm. This is where we are now, just southwest of Puerto Rico, moving to the northwest though. This is going to be the big jump tonight. What happens? Does it go straight over Hispaniola, or does it jump to the north of Hispaniola? Now, this is a little uncharacteristic, but I don't think it's going to result in an overwhelming amount of weakening to the point just because it's also not that strong to begin with, so I really don't expect it's going to it could weaken about 5, maybe, it's about a 50-mile-an-hour storm right now, so it could weaken down to a 45-mile-an-hour storm, but it will definitely get its act together just after it exits Hispaniola. After that, it'll head through the central Bahamas, at least according to the GFS. You can see this time, 8 p.m. Friday, it's about 400, 500 miles off the coast of Miami. So it is well off the coast of Florida. By Saturday morning, it gets a little closer to, say, Fort Lauderdale, but still about 250 or 300 miles off the coast. So this model, the GFS, but at the time this is being recorded, the European model, the 0Z European model, is not yet out. So I'll definitely have an update over on PAWeatherAction.com, my main site for those of you in PA, and it'll include that model. So anyway, so keeping an eye on the GFS. Now this is where it differentiates from some models. It really tracks the storm straight north from pretty much the whole way from Saturday morning all the way until about Sunday night. So that's a while. It goes straight north and not northeast. It doesn't really curve too far out to sea. Now it gets very, very close to making landfall as even a category, probably low-end category 2 storm. Because you can see right at about this point, late Saturday afternoon, early Saturday evening is when it reaches hurricane strength. And then by the time we get into Sunday evening, it very much intensifies over the Gulf Stream. And also, as I mentioned, as we'll take a look at in a second, there is much less dry air now out ahead of this system, which has been preventing the rapid intensification of the storm. But after that is no longer in existence or a problem, there's definitely going to be potential for the storm to strengthen a little bit more. So the GFS just misses the Outer Banks. It takes the eye just to the east of the Outer Banks. But we're looking at a 50-mile shift could make all the difference, and will make all the difference if we do see this track between, say, Hatteras seeing some, I'd say, moderate impacts if it were to take this track as I'm showing you, some light to moderate impacts. And if it was 50 miles to the east, a category 2 directly overhead, that'd probably be approaching some pretty significant impacts. Especially considering there's only one road in and out of Cape Hatteras and the Outer Banks in general. So from there, though, the storm actually tracks still to the north-northeast, and then it actually goes directly over Cape Cod itself. More so Nantucket. So that is where the GFS takes things. It's still a pretty strong category 1 by that point. So the GFS has definitely gotten interesting. Now, why is this storm going to intensify after it gets over the Bahamas especially? Well, currently you can see there's so much dry air everywhere to the west of the storm. Of course, where it is tracking to the west, to the north. But as this moves over Hispaniola, you can see we don't have those. This is looking at relative humidity. So there's just not as much dry air. We don't have those dark browns out ahead of the storm. And as soon as there's just not barely any dry air out ahead of the storm, it really intensifies. This is also over the Gulf Stream. So of course, that's going to help it intensify a little bit more. Now, what steers it straight north? Normally when you'd have a rapidly strengthening storm in that area, normally just the stronger the storm is, the more it would curve out to sea. However, you can see we do have a trough incoming Saturday, and normally that would kick it off, most likely kick it out to sea. However, we have a ridge over the western Atlantic, so this storm will kind of be forced in between the two. And you can see that ridge really strengthens as you head into Sunday night. So if this ridge is a little bit stronger and a little bit further west, that could easily force what will probably be a hurricane into, say, Jacksonville, North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. And definitely you'd think Cape Hatteras would probably be on the northeastern quadrant of the eye, which is, of course, the most intense part of the hurricane. So it really is going to be interesting to see how things play out in the coming days. So the latest National Hurricane Center forecasts, I'll be honest, they're kind of just going with the trend right now. As I would, it's just so hard to make a forecast of where exactly the storm's going to track through the Bahamas, and in regards to Florida, it's also hard to track. It's also hard to make an exact forecast right now, because only 24 hours ago, models were trending more and more west. It was looking like it was going to go up the west coast of Florida. And now a good amount of models don't even have it impacting Florida much at all. So this is where the storm currently is. Once again, a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm. It's projected to go over, and this will be the interesting part. How far northwest does this thing shift as it goes over Hispaniola? Because that could also impact just how far west it is when it gets to Florida and the Carolinas. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for sure. It still won't weaken as much. You can see before it goes over Hispaniola, 50 miles an hour, after 50 miles an hour. Now, you could expect some strengthening if it were to miss, but it's kind of impossible. So by the time it gets into an area that's a little bit more favorable, has a little bit less dry air out ahead of it, this is when it reaches 60-mile-an-hour winds. So this is more so a strong tropical storm expected by 8 p.m. Let me just make sure. Yeah, that's Friday. So 8 p.m. Friday, we're looking at just south of the Bahamas, a strong tropical storm. Now just to the west of Bahamas, a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm with gusts of 75 by 8 a.m. Saturday. I can't believe I just looked. Yeah, Saturday. Just making sure I want to get the right information. Now, here's where things get very uncertain. We don't know how far west the storm's going to be. Could it make landfall in Fort Lauderdale? Maybe, with how much things have kind of wobbled in the past few days. This east trend is definitely not set in stone. This is still basically, 60 hours out at this point, 60, 70 hours out. So it's definitely a possibility that it could make landfall in Fort Lauderdale. However, the trend lately has been for the storm more so to stay to the east of Florida. So for the most part, missing Florida, you could still have definitely some high surf on the east coast of Florida, maybe some rain, and, some gusty winds. But by staying to the east of Florida, that'll also put it directly in the Gulf Stream. It'll be able to be a little bit more intense, and it once again will just depend on how far west it stays. Also because we will have that ridge, and then we'll have the trough overland, the ridge over the Atlantic. So we'll definitely have to see exactly how strong that ridge is, because if it's centered a little bit further east and it's a little weaker, then yes, the storm definitely has an escape path. Basically, and it would be taking a more eastern track than this. Probably stay well off the coast to the eastern U.S. You wouldn't see that many impacts. However, nothing is certain right now. They take the tropical storm with a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm, maybe like 65, because that's a little bit after it makes landfall, near Jacksonville, North Carolina, as a, once again, 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. Once again, I'm checking the calendar. That is Monday night. So any impacts on the Carolinas will likely be felt Monday night. And then by the time, if it gets to, say, Nantucket, that's not going to be until about Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. So that is the latest update on Tropical Storm Isaias. Once again, I tried to say it. If I said it wrong, who knows? That's just how the National Hurricane Center tried to, or told us to say it. I only took 2 Spanish classes in high school. Sorry. Anyways, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more updates in the coming days for sure. We'll have articles every morning over on the website. Once again, PAWeatherAction.com for those who don't follow us over there. But that's mostly for a more local page. So anyways, everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for more videos. Stay safe.